evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap, brought to you by CrowCast, of course, and an interesting round of footy to talk about this weekend. And who better to talk about it with than my two cohorts. Nikki, how you going, Nick?
I'm going very well. I've got the heater on, under a rug, and the cat in the lap.
Pleased to hear it. And Macca, how you doing, Mac?
Well, none of that, but I'm doing well.
Well, I don't know whether I'm happy or disappointed about that, Macca, to be honest with you.
Well, as long as you have like a nice glass of red or something like that, Macca, to keep you warm.
Yeah.
We're looking after ourselves, Nikki.
That's right. And how was your weekend?
Well, busy one. It was Mrs. Macca's birthday today, and
Happy birthday, Mrs. Macca.
Yes, I'll relay that on to her. But the day's basically been dedicated to her, and
Well, that's a bit selfish, isn't it?
oh, well, she's a lovely lady. We had a family function with all the family there, from all the children, grandchildren, everybody was there, so it was good.
Very good, very good. Well, my weekend was much the same. I went and saw Detective Pikachu today with my partner and my son, and it was actually a lot better than John Wick 3 that I saw last week, so go figure. It was actually quite reasonable for what it was. Anyway, look.
If we're doing a little movie talk, then Rocket Man is awesome. Go see Rocket Man.
Yeah, there were tons of people lined up to see Rocket Man today, so I'm not surprised that that's a good one. Anyway,
great reports on it.
We got a bit to get through tonight, so why don't we get straight into the scores, shall we? Well, aside from our debacle, there were some interesting scores. Hard to keep up with some of them this week. I caught one or two and missed a couple of others. I don't know how you guys went with your tips.
Yeah, well, there was a few upsets, wasn't there?
There was a few, but
I'm kind of kicking myself. I didn't go with my head on some of these and kind of went with, I think this team should be.
There goes Nikki with her audio cutting out again. I wonder why that started to happen, Nick.
No idea.
No, anyway, let's get into the scores. And Friday night was the first upset of the round. North Melbourne having the usual new coach bounce. We should have all picked it, but Rhys Shaw, I mean, come on. 99 to 62 over Richmond, a margin of 37 points.
Stole my lines there, Fina. I was thinking, you should go for the coach that takes over from the one that's been sacked. They usually win first up. And then I saw Rhys Shaw on the TV, and I thought, no way.
Yeah, I know.
But, well, look, they played pretty good footy, actually, and they were far too good.
Yep, they looked all right. And, it'll be interesting to see how long that lasts.
Does that suggest that they underperformed?
Well, that's always the question, isn't it? If they can perform to that level the 1 week, why can't they perform to that level another week? Surely, they all seem to get around Brad Scott when he was there and when all that was going down. So why all of a sudden the change just because they got a new coach? I don't know. Anyway, never mind. Saturday, the Giants fast firming as my premiership favourite. I know it was only the Suns, but geez, they look good right now. 126 to 43 over the Suns, a lazy 83 points.
Even over Geelong, and they can't play at the MCG still?
Yeah, I don't know, Nick.
Yeah, my man Caniglio, he was outstanding, and he's been suffering a finger injury, and he been played with it and missed one game, but he was really on song. And you got Kelly, and I'm with you, Fiend. I think they're one of the ones they're in the top three chances for the flag in my book.
Yeah, I reckon any club, and I might have said this before, but I reckon any club needs to go through a bit of adversity before they can succeed, and GWS have had that over the last couple of years, and I think it might have just steeled them a little bit, Macca. It's going to be very interesting to see how they play in the second half of the season, I reckon.
They're getting tougher.
They are.
Yeah, players maturing.
Yes, I agree, and perhaps realising that not everything's going to be handed to them like it was in their junior careers and all that sort of stuff. And they've probably got a better balance now, I reckon.
Yep.
Anyway, the first of the upsets, which I happened to jag, and I called this, I reckon, I don't know, Wednesday at work. Fremantle getting up over Collingwood 79-75, a little bit controversial, but Freo played pretty well to get the 4 points.
They did, didn't they? And they're very lucky to get the 4 points, as we know, because the third umpire is now, well, not the third, fourth umpire, the video umpire, video referee, whatever he's called. He's actually said that the equipment failed. He didn't.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and the equipment failed, so he didn't get an opportunity to see where the ball was touched as it was kicked. So he looked at the goal line instead.
Bloody hell.
My God.
And this is the AFL just cheap shotting that kind of stuff and not actually working it through, as we know. But the thing is, I don't think you can say that, Macca, because if that was called a point, that means the way the rest of the game panned out completely changes.
Exactly.
Because it becomes a kick out.
Of course you can, and so, you're quite right.
Look at that, Macca. I'm right.
Nikki, you're partially right.
Look, if I have to ban the both of you from this chat, if people knew what the banter was before this actually went live, they'd understand. I'm going to have my hands full tonight.
Yep.
Bit of fun. We have fun.
It's all fun.
No, Fremantle have actually, it was a good call, Fane, because Fremantle have been playing well in Melbourne this year, and Collingwood have just been doing enough. So I hope this is a nice little kick in the pants for those players who are just doing enough and not putting all together a 4-quarter effort together for Collingwood, because they've got a good team that they can once again make it to the grand final.
Actually, very good comment there, Nikki, because
they're in and out of games.
Yeah, because they've been the last couple of games against very lesser teams. They've sort of coasted, got in a situation where it could have gone either way, and then just kicked in and just knocked the game off. But they couldn't do that against a side like Fremantle that were pretty tough, who ran over them at the end.
Yeah, I don't have too many concerns about Collingwood. You're going to drop one or two, even Hawthorn did in their heyday, and it's a long season, etc., etc. So probably a nice little shake-up just to keep them interested. Sydney was the other upset that I tipped, and they looked good, but just couldn't get their noses in front over Geelong, who ended up winning by 22 points, 85-63. Yeah,
well, home ground advantage for a start. Very good midfield, Geelong. Their ageing midfield, they've moved out. They've got some of the younger boys in there. Kelly is a Rolls Royce. He's so smooth at picking the ball up. I just wish we had somebody like that in our midfield, because he's got that electric pace. He picks the ball up and he's away, and he uses the ball very well.
I think we do, Macca. He's just a bit younger. Jordan Gallucci, I reckon, is one to keep an eye on in that regard.
Yes.
Yeah, he's on the way up, no doubt about that. Geelong, and look, Sydney are in a rebuild mode. There's no doubt about it. They're definitely in a rebuild mode. I thought they played reasonably well, but Geelong just a much more classier side overall.
I was disappointed to see the cornflower I put on the oval didn't have any impact on the grass.
Oh, Nikki.
Nikki, you could get arrested for that.
We didn't know the wind was going to blow that way.
In fact, I might dob you in.
No, all the staffers saw us do it, so...
Yeah, okay. Today, I didn't watch any of the footy, but apparently Port got up in front of 9 disinterested people over St Kilda by 70 points, 139-69.
Well, at our family function, we did have the TV on the footy, because we are a bit of a footy family. Look, what a useless game that is. Seriously, it is a useless bloody game. First of all, you look at the game. They reckon the game's sold out. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Who knows? You can see nobody there at all. Most of the seats are empty. They say because it's warm, they're all in the hospitality tent.
That's a load of rubbish.
Nobody's ever seen a photo of the hospitality tent.
No, it's a load of rubbish.
Yeah, just a pile of tarps out the back, I would imagine. But no, it was a pointless game, unfortunately for St Kilda, not having experienced it like Port Adelaide did. They went across there, they got the Chinese equivalent of barley belly or whatever you get over there.
Yeah.
And Port Adelaide were very, very meticulous in their preparation. I heard KT talking about that with food, etc., to make sure that they didn't get that situation. St Kilda next year, they'll be obviously a lot more professional about it. But as a result of that, it was a mismatch and a very uninteresting game and made Port look a lot better than they really are.
Oh, yeah. There is no way in a pink fit that game gets sold out every year. It's just, why does Gill and the AFL just continue to treat the AFL fan base as a bunch of idiots? It's quite clear that there is no interest in China for Australian rules football. Why bother?
Well, if you're going to go, firstly, they've got too many problems at home. They should be fixing up. Like Gold Coast, what a basket case that is in terms of financially, etc. Giants, even though they are a good football team financially, they still rely on massive handouts of money. Port Adelaide rely on massive handouts of money. So there's a lot. Thank you. Yeah, look, there's a lot of problems at home. I'd much prefer they concentrated on them.
Yep, I agree. Essendon keeping us in the number one slot for the upcoming draft, 74-33 over Carlton. Do you think Bolton survives the week?
Well, I did get to watch this one a little bit more of this, only probably the last half more. Saying I'm scared. I think that Bolton's going to get the sack. They might win some games because, seriously, they were halfway through the season. They won one game. And Essendon, I saw the list of outs that Essendon had. There was probably 5 or 6 very classy players out. And yet Carlton were like a limp lettuce leaf. They've got nothing. Even their captain Cripps, he's getting tagged out and he's virtually given up. The last 2 games, he's virtually given up. And I can't see a future for Carlton.
The last 2 games, they've actually put a hard tag on Cripps for the first time. And it's just showing up that he's got nothing around him.
Well,
the others can't.
I agree, Nick.
The
Sorry, Nick, to interrupt you. I agree, and I really wonder whether Patrick Cripps is going to want to spend the rest of his football career playing in that environment, because he doesn't need to. He doesn't owe that club anything. And you're right, they just sit on him now. He's the only bloke that is giving anything in that middle. So they just sit on him. So that's not a fun way to play the game for Patrick Cripps. And I wouldn't mind betting that he's on the trade table at the end of the year. I really wouldn't. Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest.
Well, before that though, the coach, I think, Fiend, my guess is if I was on the Carlton board, he would be gone now. He would be gone now if I was on the Carlton board. What's your thoughts?
Well, the Carlton board themselves are under the pump. So whether they make a move just to be seen to be doing something, I don't know. But that club is going to go through a lot of turmoil in the coming months. I can see the board being basically wiped out. I wouldn't mind betting that Bolton doesn't survive the week. The only way he survives the week is if they don't have the money to pay him out. My opinion.
They have to get rid of the board, because it was the board that approved that trade pick with us, which was the height of stupidity. And they keep backing in at Sauce as their list manager, and everybody from outside that club can see that is where the problem starts. That list is not good.
Well, the players on the ground aren't as bad as the results are, Nicky. They genuinely are.
But he doesn't. Yeah, but once those players are out, they've lost Doherty for the year. And once they lost him, I knew they were very rarely going to win a game because of how much drive he provides off of that half-back line, because their midfield can't apply the defensive pressure. Therefore, it ends up in their back line. They have to rely on him to get the ball out of there to give them a chance to actually deliver it to their forwards. Their forward line, yes, they've got some great talent in there.
They have.
But the fact that they've got Cruiser, who's perpetually injured, they've got Cripps that's being bashed around and is going to end up, they've they need to rest him because he's not going to have a long AFL career because of the punishment his body has to take, because he's the only one who actually goes out there and tries. And I think the first chance you have one of the Western Australian clubs come sniffing at him, if he's smart, he'll jump back there so fast as he could. There's so much issues in terms of their depth, that they're overpaying particular players. And I think Dane Swan kind of knocked it on the head this week when if you played for Carlton, you'd be drinking.
Yeah, and you wouldn't mind playing in the twos either. Who'd want to play in that
the
rabble?
twos. That's actually not a demotion. That's a promotion.
Well, so just to sum it up, I fear that Bolton will go this week. I think there's much greater than a 50% chance he'll go this week. I hope that he goes to last till the end of the year.
Yep, I agree. Look, and the last game going on at the moment, it's almost finished. West Coast coasting to the line, pardon the pun, 133-71 at the moment over the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs have kicked a couple late, but the West Coast Eagles doing that one easily. And
just for the benefit of Vardy Magic, who asked did I watch one less game in honour of Mrs. Macca's birthday, this was the game I didn't watch.
All right, so that leaves us with a ladder that's starting to take a little bit of shape, I think. We have the Cats still on top with, hang on a sec, 40 points. On 32 points, we have the Giants and Collingwood. Giants, very healthy percentage too, 139%. Brisbane Lions and West Coast Eagles on 28 points, along with Richmond, who just... Their ranking probably belies their current form. They're only just going at the moment, Richmond. They could be a little bit vulnerable, and their percentage kind of suggests that, 101%. So actually West Coast will go up to 32 points to join GWS and Collingwood. Port and the Crows in the 8 on 24 points. Fremantle outside the 8 on 24 points. Then we have Essendon and Hawthorn and St Kilda on 20. The Bulldogs, North Melbourne and on 16. Sydney and Melbourne and Gold Coast on 12. And poor old Navy Blues on 4 points. So, I think it's starting to take shape. I think Richmond are the vulnerable ones, along with, obviously, us and Port in that top 8. I don't see anyone else really dropping out, to be honest with you. I think even the Brisbane Lions, I think, will have probably done enough at the beginning of the year that they should be looking at a top 8 finish.
Yep.
And the ones below, I mean, the problem with Freo is that they're winning, but their percentage is not good because of their game style.
Oh, 110%. 110% Fremantle, that's not bad.
Yeah, and it's the same as what ours is, and that's also our problem, in that we're playing because of that restrictive game style. So when it comes down to, with the fact that there's, 3 or 4 teams on 24 points?
Yeah, there's 3 at the moment.
Yeah, it comes down to percentage, and you really need to play that slightly more attacking game style to get that, and that's what makes you vulnerable.
Yeah, I think Freo are the only one that look anywhere near likely to come into the 8. And as I said, there's probably 3 teams that look a little vulnerable within the 8. So even this early in the season, unless there's some form turnaround from, say, an Essendon or maybe North Melbourne keep chugging along with Reece Shaw, the very, very eloquent Reece Shaw at the helm. It doesn't look like there's going to be a huge amount of change.
Well, if you go through the ladder, you've got Geelong, Giants, Collingwood, West Coast Eagles. They're home and hose, those 4. They're going to be in the 8. Brisbane Lions, their form is, I suppose, I'd say the next 4 are the vulnerable 4. Brisbane Lions, Richmond, Port Adelaide and the Crows. We could all make it, those 4, because... And when I say we could all back it, at worst, you'd probably think that only one of those is likely to drop out.
Yeah.
With Fremantle as obviously the team that would come in. And so really its performances from now on between Brisbane Lions, Richmond, Port Adelaide and ourselves, and who's going to open the gate for Fremantle to get in. Because they're playing well enough to get in if they could maintain this form.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's Port that are probably the most vulnerable. It just probably remains to be seen how Richmond overcome their injuries, and it remains to be seen whether we can get through this little stretch without too much damage. And speaking of Adelaide, why don't we talk about Adelaide now? Sorry, YouTube. And it was the Crows leading for, I don't know, what was it, 1.5 minutes of the game? 2 minutes of the game?
Maybe two.
Yeah.
2.5.
Yeah, pretty funny when you think about it. The Crows getting up 14 goals, 690 to 12 goals, 1688. So 20 scoring shots to 28. The margin 2 points in the end. Melbourne missing some gettable shots and kicking, 1 goal, 8 in the final quarter to pretty much gift wrap the win to the Crows, and the Crows were good enough to steal it.
Yeah, well, I thought our first half was abysmal, to be honest. Absolutely abysmal. In terms of intensity, in terms of the way the game was played, in the sense that we seemed to have most of our players in the back lines, and yet they seemed to have loose players in their forward line, which was very difficult to understand. Which means that we obviously weren't working hard enough or smart enough or something. We were losing. I don't know what the clearances were. I haven't bothered to look at that, but I felt that we, in terms of effectively, they got the ball out of the centre much more effectively than we did, because I thought that Gawn monstered Paul Riley, and he really wasn't up. He's not up to that standard. Gawn is one of the best two in the competition.
Riley actually negated him quite well around the ground, though, which is where Gawn is at his most damaging. He's still a very good tap ruckman, but I actually thought Riley did pretty well around the ground.
Yeah, but I still think that in the centre it's very important to get those ones out of the centre too, Nicky. Look, Gawn is a very, very good footballer. Riley O'Brien's a rookie ruckman, and one thing I will say for Riley O'Brien, I have never, ever doubted his courage and I've never, ever doubted his endeavour. And he may, in the long run, turn out to be a reasonably good ruckman, because he does try his guts out. He's got a good leap, etc., etc. So I don't think he's without ability, and I don't think he's without hope for the future. But, he's a rookie at this stage up against a master. And I thought, on top of that, Oliver just was killing us, and I don't know whether anybody was trying to contain him in that first half, but I didn't see it.
Sloan, it seems.
Well,
which is why he went nuts in the second quarter, because Sloan was off, and we didn't switch anybody onto him.
Well, he certainly did go nuts, Nicky, and I just have this thing about our coaching panel that they react too slowly. I don't know, Fiend, you think am I being unfair?
Yes and no. I don't know. I said in the preview show with Cam that I thought the danger for us was getting done on the outside, and that's exactly what happened in the second quarter.
Yes.
They set up particularly well, and they were getting us on the rebound quite regularly, and their transition cut us up. We weren't running defensively very well. Brad Crouch again worries me with his defensive running. Cameron Ellis-Yeoman, as much as he played a very good game, can be a bit of a jogger defensively. I don't think we worked hard enough defensively, and it exposed again our defence, particularly with Hardigan out. As soon as Hardigan came out and we brought in a small, it worried me, because I just didn't think D-Mac was the right choice, to be honest with you. And yeah, so for pretty much all of the second quarter, they just did us on the outside, and we looked second rate as a consequence. But I did feel, Macca, that we regrouped quite well at half time, and I felt like in the third quarter, it was almost a bit of a stalemate situation because we just didn't seem to be able to work through their zone effectively. I think we had a reasonable amount of the ball, and our rebound 50 stats were reasonably good, but we just didn't seem to be able to move the ball quick enough and with any sort of aggression to be able to get through their zone. So they were able to set up behind the ball and then just work off the turnovers. And the disappointing thing with that is that we didn't have a marking target. And when you've got a team like Melbourne that are zoned back and playing that grid style that they were, and you could see it quite clearly on the TV, their grid setup. Yeah. If you don't have a marking target, it's very hard to break that up. And, we'll talk about individuals in a moment, but my observation was that it wasn't until the game broke open in the last and their zone broke down and we were able to start. Yeah, exactly, Nick. And we were tired too, and even our transition work in the last quarter, it was it was almost not comical, but it certainly wasn't smooth. It was it was very much a bustling sort of style of do anything you can, and you've got to give the players credit for that because I think they were buggered.
Almost scattergun, yeah.
It was, but they were buggered and they found a way, Mac. And you can't be too disappointed with that. We kicked 9 goals to 3 after half time, and that's not a bad effort because we were down and out at half time. We kicked 4 goals to 2 in the third quarter, despite really struggling to get through their defence. And it seemed to me that apart from Melbourne's kicking, like they kicked 3 goals, 12 after half time, but I think some of that was because they lost their aggression. Certainly shutting down Oliver was a tick to the coach's box and a tick to Bryce Gibbs, who had that job. But also blokes like Brayshaw and Jones stopped having as much of an influence in that second half. We shut down their rebounding defenders like Hibbard and who was the other one? Hoare, I think, off half-back, who had been just bouncing everything out. We started to get on top of that, and so it was a fair turnaround. Kicking 9 goals to 3, 9 goals 3 to 3 goals 12. So what's that? 15 scoring shots to 12. So we certainly matched it in terms of pings at goal, and it was just that in the end Melbourne didn't take their chances.
One thing you did say about, and you mentioned Brad Crouch not running into defence, and you're correct about that, but I think it's a little bit unfair to pick him out because I thought none of the midfielders dropped back into defence. And that was our problem in the sense that when they did that rebound, they were rebounding clearly, and I took careful note to notice that so many times when they rebounded and got a goal from it, it was our midfielders were back at the half forward flank at best of the opposition, when their players were up around in between the half forward flank and the goals. So there was probably 3 or 4 of our blokes coming down, not just Brad.
Yeah. It was Harms, not Hoare, that I was thinking of. The other one that did really well for them was Bailey Fritsch, I thought, played quite well.
He played well. Yeah, played very well.
So they were getting a lot of bounce off that halfback. So, look, without going into individuals at all at the moment, I just felt like we still have some passengers defensively in that midfield, whether it be fitness or otherwise. I think Seedsman is struggling with leg speed at the moment.
He's one of them, yeah.
Yeah, people bag players so quickly, but he's come back from a fairly reasonable knee injury, so he's been off his feet for a few weeks, and he's just playing like that. He's just a yard off, but give the guy a break for goodness sake.
Yeah,
but a couple of others.
I'm not too worried about Seeds,
no.
But I'm quite a big fan of his, and we know that he's actually one of the smart defensively running midfielders we have. But I think the loss of Sloaney was huge because he does work that midfield quite well, and if they're not doing what they should be doing, he's really picked up on that this year. Is that he corrects?
Yeah.
And he does go two ways, Nikki.
Yeah, and he does. So the fact that we did it with him off for essentially 3 quarters, because it was the start of the second.
Yep.
And we've talked about this earlier in the year, that these little tough wins are where we don't seem to deserve to win, but we get the win. That is actually the type of wins that will get you into finals and winning finals, because a lot of times you have teams that are restricting the way you want to play. So whilst there was a lot of swearing in my living room, and I was very frustrated at the players and the coaching and the umpires, the end of the day, for footy speak, it's the fact that we managed to keep at it, not drop our heads. Players who played bad first halves then picked it up and corrected in the second half. I'm pleased about.
All right, let's go through some head-to-heads and see if we can find some sort of semblance of logic in this mess. Disposals, Melbourne outpossessed us 307 to 283. Wasn't a huge disparity. Melbourne wanted to handball the ball a bit more than we did, and they did it to good effect in the second quarter. But then I felt at times they overused after half-time. Marks were fairly even, 88 to 84. Tackles, we won the tackle count, although the tackle count was low, 53 to 46, which is surprising given that the game seemed to be pretty hard-fought contest. Hit-outs, despite all the words from Macarelli, were in Adelaide's favour, 32 to 24. With Riley O'Brien getting 27 hit-outs to Max Gawn's 21, so chew on that, Mac. Let me have a look. Disposals
I was talking about the centre bounce. Centre bounce.
Whatever, mate. Disposals per scoring shot was horrific for us, 21 to 16. We know that it needs to be down around 13 mark. 12 mark, and so we're very overuse the ball. Inside 50s, we only had 34 inside 50s for the match, to 45 to Melbourne. It just shows that the game really was played between halfbacks, because even the 45 from Melbourne probably is low considering how much they dominated the match at times. Clearances we won, Macca, 28 to 24. Rebound 50s, surprisingly 34 to 23 our way. I would have thought that number would have been in Melbourne's favour, given how much they bounced off half back in that second quarter. But anyway, a couple of interesting. Not yet. Contested possessions, they won by 15, and they also won uncontested possessions by 10. Disposal efficiency was around about the same, 73 mark. But here we go. Contested marks 14 to 6. Marks inside 50 18 to 7. And if I can just jump down a bit, tackles inside 50 14 to 7. So we can have a conversation about our forward line in a minute. Clearances 35 to 33. That was made up of centre clearances, which they won by 3, 16 to 13. We won it around the ground 22 to 17. As I said, rebound 50s were ridiculously in our favour. And turnovers were about the same. So the only stats that really stand out to me are our aerial work and our work inside 50.
Yeah, and also your point too about a large majority of the game being played between the two half forward lines, because when you take the total number of entries into the forward 50, that is pretty low overall.
Yeah, absolutely.
And our delivery into the forward line was noticeably so bad once again, except if it was from Gallucci. That kid knows how to pass a ball beautifully.
Beautiful, yeah, beautiful.
And to the advantage of the forwards. I thought that our forwards were pushing up too high, and that we corrected that corrected that a bit in the second half. But I agree with you, Fiend. As much as JJ did, and he fought quite well. I mean, that goal in the last was very un-JJ-like, and it actually showed that he's got his head in the right space. This is what he needs to do, otherwise Himmelberg's coming straight back in. And Elliott had a decent game in the SNFL and was moving well. I still think we don't gel well with him anymore in that forward line. So whatever's going on there, instructions, it just doesn't seem to work with him and Walker and Lynch.
My opinion of the forward line is that JJ is not a natural forward and therefore often doesn't run to the right positions, and we also know that he will run to the least the area with the least amount of traffic rather than impose himself in a crowded space. There was a key moment, I think it might have been in the last quarter, from a kick out or a kick from our defence that went to a pack that consisted of Gawn, Jenkins, Walker, and I think Alex Keith. And Gawn ended up with the ball. And Jenkins, as the tallest bloke there for us, just didn't want to impose himself on that contest. And it's indicative of the way Josh plays. And we know that's how Josh plays, that he will never be that smash and bash, just push everyone aside, marking centre half forward. But I think it also impacts on his running patterns. I think he runs to easy spaces, like spaces where there's not a lot of contest, and often they're not where the kick's going to go. Tex, on the other hand, I think has a habit of getting up too high, whether by instruction or otherwise, and often
I think he's trying to get that ball to create something.
Well, I think this is a product of Tex trying to have an influence. And again, Cam and I were talking about it on Saturday morning. I wish Tex would just give the captaincy to Sloaney, whether it be officially or unofficially or behind closed doors, because all I want Tex to do is concentrate on playing the last few years of his career as a forward. Because I think he's actually trying too hard to have an influence on the game, and the amount of times we kick the ball on Lockie Murphy's head because we didn't have a tall in position.
Yeah.
Now some of it's just bad decision making, but some of it is because Lockie Murphy is the only bloke there, and that's because our two key forwards, for reasons that I've just mentioned, are not in the right positions. Jenkins, because he won't lead to where the ball needs to go, and Tex, because he's often too high. So, the only thing that I was saying in Jenkins' favour is that I think he did a couple of things on Saturday night that, had we had Elliott in the team, I don't think Elliott would have been capable of doing them. That wrestle goal that Jenkins got, I don't think we would have got that from Elliott, not because of effort, but because of size.
Yep.
Yeah, not yet. I think down the track we will get that from Elliott, but he's still young.
Exactly. So at this stage, there are certain things that Jenkins gives us when he's engaged that Himmelberg just isn't equipped at the moment to give us. I think there's not a question of doubt in my mind that Himmelberg will end up being the better forward. But right now, as it stands, if Jenkins is engaged, and I don't think Josh had a bad game. It wasn't a great game, but it wasn't a bad game. But he's going to give us certain things that at the moment we're not getting from Elliott, and we probably won't until next season.
This is definitely his best game for the year, though, Fiend, and it was he wasn't trying to be that sneaky guy out the back just trying to get the easy kick. He actually competed in a lot of contests that in games gone by that he wouldn't have, and I think that he has got the message that he does have to contest a lot more than he had been, and I think that's obviously what his message was. And I thought he did what he should have. You're quite right. He's not a natural forward. He doesn't always go to the right places. I don't think it's also helped by Walker, as you say. I think Walker's trying over hard to be the captain, try to urge everybody, trying to do this, try to do that, instead of just playing.
I think it's also that even if he's not the captain, he still would be a leader in that forward line, and he would still be trying too hard, because that forward line isn't gelling. The fact that he knows he's got JJ there now, and that JJ is going to run to the same space he's possibly going to, as we've talked before. The fact that when we've had Elliott in the team, except for once Elliott started to get tired, that's when Tex started to look not so good as well. I think there really is that Tex is such a natural footballer, and Elliott is also a natural footballer, that when you put somebody like JJ down there, it means he's got to work a lot harder to try and get that forward line working. And the same with Lynch. Lynch was very quiet for large patches of the night, but when we really started to get movement, that's when you saw Lynch bobbing up and actually getting that ball forward.
Yeah, but I noticed though that the Melbourne tools stay a lot closer to goal than ours do. Much closer.
Well, and it's been noticeable with other teams that have tall marking options. West Coast were the same. You didn't see Darling. Oh, Darling probably works up a bit, but certainly Kennedy
Darling
doesn't.
does.
Kennedy stays in that 50-metre arc.
Yep, absolutely. So we're always and I had horrible visions. But poor old Lockie Murphy standing there. At one stage, there were two tall Melbourne defenders.
No, he had three.
Sorry?
He had three on him.
Three, was it?
He did nearly win the ball.
The poor little bastard. Well, it's just ridiculous. Just absolutely ridiculous that we've got a centre half or we've got a full forward and you've got this poor little bugger supposed to beat three of them. So Spain's absolutely right about the positioning of Walker and about the positioning of Jenkins. They're just not in the right spot.
No, they aren't. And, we started the year, remember, we were quite critical of our forward 50 entries. And I think there's still a bit of that, Mac. I still think at times we make poor decisions or our disposal into the forward 50 is not what it should be, like that pass to Tex in the...
Yeah.
Towards the end there was just an easy kick that went straight over his head. So I still think there's some issues with decisions and disposals inside 50, but I do think that we make it very difficult for the blokes coming through on transition, because we don't actually have a key forward that is straight lining. He's not leading into that line between where the ball carrier is and the goals.
100% right.
Yeah, they slow us down across the half back line so that they can gest that space. It's only when we can get that switch going that we can then get that kind of leading pattern there. But the interesting thing is, you look at only how many years ago was it that we had that damaging forward line, which included Tex and included JJ. And who was coaching it? Teague.
Yeah,
so
but
it can actually happen.
No, but that
part of it also comes down to coaching.
That forward line was completely different, Nikki, because we were pushing everyone up high, and we were getting people out the back. We had amazing transition, so our speed off halfback was ridiculous. We were able to catch defences pushed up too far, and then we'd catch them over the back. We also had an extra marking forward in McGovern, who, even though he was inconsistent, he was still the type of player that you just couldn't leave alone, because you leave him alone, he bobs up and takes a grab. So we're a little bit...
the big one, Charlie Cameron speed.
Exactly. So, we're a little bit smaller, we're a little bit slower, we seem to lack a little bit of defensive pressure, and the blokes that are the key marking forwards seem to be a little bit out of touch. So the game has changed. Look, the game has changed, and I think it's important.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree with you on that, but for me it also comes down to coaching, in that because we had those advantages, we had a setup for our forward line that worked with that. We now have a different way of moving the ball, but our forward line doesn't seem to be gelling with that way of moving, and therefore there's a coaching issue that's going on there, not just the players.
Don't forget, we had Dangerfield as well, Nick. We had a far more powerful midfield back then.
Not in 17. Not in 17.
No, but we were playing that way in 16 as well, Macca. We were pushing everyone up and everyone was coming back over the top.
I do think there's two factors in play here. The game's definitely changed, but I do think that Nicky is on a rare good point here about the coaching aspect of it, because I think Teague was a very, very good forward coach, and I don't think anybody's going to stick their neck out and say that Ben Hartman is anywhere a patch on Teague as a coach, and I think there is a disconnect between the rest of the way we're playing and our forward line.
I don't buy it, Macca. I don't buy it for one moment. I know everyone goes on about Benny Hart, but I don't buy it. Josh Jenkins and Tex Walker and Eddie Betts and Tom Lynch have been playing in that role for years now. You don't forget how to be a forward. You don't forget how to take a mark. You don't forget where to lead. You don't forget separation. You don't forget all those things. And a coach at that level is not going to be concentrating on those sorts of things. So, there might be certain structural issues, I'll grant you that, but the simple fact is that a key post not putting himself in the right positions often enough comes down to the individual, in my view. I don't think it's coaching.
Unless he's been told to be up high and
no, but Josh Jenkins doesn't get told to run to the bloody fat side of the ground all the time because that's where no one is. That's what he does. That's what Josh Jenkins does. He will, if there's too many players in front of him who want the ball over the back, he will not run to a crowded area. And you know as well as I do, if you're coming in off the wing, you've got the ball in hand, you want someone leading at you because you don't have time to be looking left and right at 90-degree angles. You want someone leading in that V towards you, right? And that is exactly where Josh Jenkins will never put himself. He will run diagonally away from you, or he'll want the ball over the back. That's how Josh plays. That's how he's always played. And it's not coaching, it's the individual.
Well, all right. Look, I still don't think there is a proper transition in the forward line for some reason, and whether it's not just Jenkins. I do think there is a disconnect sometimes when we bring the ball from our back lines through the midfield, and
I don't disagree with that, man.
The players aren't in the right spot because then you see our bloke who's under pressure having just to kick it wildly, and there's nobody there. So structurally, something's not quite right. But anyhow, we could argue about that.
Yeah, and look, a lot of people were telling me on the night that Tex was being ignored a lot of the time where he was leading. But I'll put it to you again. I don't know whether they're leading to the right spots.
And it's hard for us to kind of tell because we only have that TV vision.
Yeah.
Yes. That's why I'm not.
That TV vision is not good.
But to my way of thinking, if you've got two strong key forwards, and let's face it, Jenkins is a big body, Tex is a big body. You run, you lead. Like, remember how Lockett used to lead? And I know that neither of them are Tony Lockett, but Lockett and Dunstall and those blokes, they'd lead, and they wouldn't give a rat's ass who was in the way. They would just lead out.
You can't do that anymore.
And neither of these two
Nicky, you can still be aggressive. Nicky, you can still be aggressive with your leads, and we're not. Our key forwards are not aggressive with their leading. Anyway, Donkey was supposed to be on tonight too, but I don't know where he is. And before we get into the individual stats,
he's still on NT time, probably.
Yeah, probably. Donkey, if you're listening, come on, mate. Just before we get into the individual stats, just a quick thank you to Smith Partners Real Estate, of course. Ryan, currently over in England, I think he is at the moment, having been to the Monaco Grand Prix last week, and he tuned in for the rev up over the weekend, so that was good. Also, Down to Earth Electrical for all your electrical needs, and of course, thank you to everyone on Patreon as well who gives us their support. People who watch the rev up on the weekend would have noticed that the lighting was so much better this week. That's because with your support we were able to buy some new lights, so that was lovely. Thank you very much, and we'll continue to reinvest those donations into equipment to try and keep the quality as good as it possibly can be. Right, let's get into some stats, you people. Right, so again, I want to... what's going on with bloody footy wire, for God's sakes? Look, I want to talk about Brad Crouch again, because again, he was our leading stats getter. Was almost, apart from Lairdy. 21 kicks and 8 handballs. There's been a definite change in the way Brad's operating in terms of his disposals. 3 marks, 3 goals from Brad Crouch, 5 tackles, 3 inside 50s, 7 clearances, 4 rebound 50s. He had 13 contested possessions, only went at 55% disposal efficiency, so only 16 effective disposals. But he had...
Part of that, though, was
Hang
because
on, just hold on, Nikki. Just hold your horses, mate. He had 6 clearances around the ground, 9 score involvements, and gained us nearly 600 metres. Go.
So he had to take the Sloaney role of that quick kick out of defence. And so I think that's where a lot of that disposal efficiency drops off because of that. And then that was the problem with the way our forward line was structured. We were pushing up high and then we'd drop back and their opponents would still stay on that 50-metre arc. And so Brad's quick kick out from the pocket would pretty much end up on that 50 line, and that's when they were getting those quick entries back in.
I agree with you, Nikki. I think you're right.
So to me, this was a better game from Brad, taking into account that that's where some of that comes in. 3 goals from Brad was very good, particularly that last one, which there would have been a lot of mental pressure that was going on there. I still think you're right, though, Fiend, in that he's still not quite trusting that speed, or whether he's lost that because of the surgery.
Look, possibly.
I think it might be that he's lost that little bit of speed, that burst of speed that he used to have, which was what really separated him as that possible superstar midfielder.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not too sure. Look, I'm going to have to reassess my outlook on Brad, because to be honest with you, I was quite surprised he had as many disposals as he did. So I might have Brad Crouch blinkers on. So I'm actually going to go back and watch the game and focus on Bradley, because I thought he was patchy. I thought he was in and out of it, and I didn't think that he had the impact that the stats seemed to suggest that he had. So I'm going to sit on the fence, and I'm not going to say too much because I'm willing to put my hand up and say that maybe I'm just I've got some negative bias going on or something.
Personally, I thought he played a good game and would be in our best 3 players.
Yep, and that's fair. That's fair enough. I'm happy to accept that, Mac. As I said, something's going on with the way that I'm seeing Brad Crouch at the moment. Thanks, Nikki, for your input. Right, so
I had an input before. I didn't know I needed to say any more. I thought I'd said enough.
Come on. Yeah, well, that's probably true. That's probably true. It's probably good.
You had some munchies there, Nikki.
Good judgment,
Fruit chocks.
Actually.
Fruit chocks.
Lairdy, 31 touches, 16 of 15, took 6 marks, 4 tackles, 1 inside 50, 5 rebound 50s. He had 7 contested possessions, went at nearly 88% disposal efficiency, 9 score involvements, 360 metres gained, 7 intercept possessions. I still don't think that Lairdy is as effective as he has been in the past. I'm surprised to see his disposal efficiency up as high as it was, to be honest.
Because he does a lot of short passes, though, Fiend.
Yeah, but a lot of those lob ones as well that seem to go straight up in the bloody air.
Yeah,
well, that's because it's that under pressure. He's got somebody running at him.
Yeah, no, I get. Yeah, I understand that.
His overall rate's
but he's
good.
always done those little loopy ones.
Mm.
We've always said that about him.
His overall rate's pretty good, though, and given him a normal situation of a clearance, and you'd back him head to chest more often than a lot of them would.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, to me, he's slowly starting to get better, but I agree with you there, Fane, that he's not quite at the level we know he can get to. But I thought there was a lot more forward run from him than what we've seen over the past couple of weeks, and particularly we hadn't seen it at the start of the season.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't his worst game, and they were under siege a little bit at times.
A lot.
But, yeah, just probably a little bit off. Anyway, Smithers, I thought, had a good game, 17 and 10 for 27, had 10 marks, only the one tackle, 4 inside 50s, 8 rebound 50s, however, which was good. Only went at 63% disposal efficiency, but did gain us nearly 700 metres. Now, I want to know whether that 700 metres is net, because if he's gone at 63%, how many of that 700 metres came back over his head? But anyway...
that's probably true. Yeah,
7 score involvements, 11 intercept possessions, turned it over 7 times, however. But I thought he kept going, kept working hard all night.
He had a good game. The metres gain, I do love the ball in his hand, because you know that he's going to use whatever pace he can for as far as he can. And I mean, he's got great pace, and he's going to use that pace for as far as he can. And 9 times out of 10, he's going to give a very long kick. Now, you know that, I know that, and you would think our forwards would position ourselves when they saw Smith get the ball appropriately, but that isn't always the case. And
that's exactly what I'm talking about, Mac, with regards to Jenkins. Smithers gets the ball, he should be just leading straight up.
Yeah,
you know.
Yep, fair comment.
Anyway, go on.
And then the one leading behind him, as a switchback, so we can do the longer kick over if we need to. Depending on who the defenders run. Forward movement
101. Forward movement 101, Nick. And just on that, how many times do we see a ball miss the leading forward, and the next three blokes in line were bloody Melbourne players? I mean, I remember as an 8-year-old, what you'd do when you're doing lane work, that you'd just kick it end to end, but the guy behind was always told to back up, have to back up. Jesus Christ, it was like basic football, and yet it happened time after time, Mac, where we had no one backing up the guy going for the mark. It was ridiculous. Anyway, we'll keep going. Now look, all right. Look, Pete and I are going to punch on about this guy on Tuesday night, but let's just whet the appetite. Rory Atkins, 17 kicks, 10 handballs, 27 disposals, took 11 marks, 2 tackles, 2 inside 50s, 7 clangers, however, 2 rebound 50s. Let me have a look. 6 contested possessions. His disposal efficiency was down for him 67%. 11 score involvements, gained us 343 metres, 5 intercepts, 7 turnovers. Tell me what you thought.
I can't tell you what I really think, because you're not allowed to use that language in this broadcast.
Correct. My son's listening on YouTube, Macca.
Yes. Wasn't a jolly good show. 27 possessions, and I think probably the worst 27 game possession game that I've seen. I'd hate to be a forward in front of that guy. He's in the open, but no, he's got to try and take somebody on and do a sidestep to try to push him off, get caught folding the ball instead. And he did that at a very crucial stage too, the bloody idiot. Oh, I don't know.
Bloody's all right. Bloody's all right.
Okay.
Say bloody.
And the language in my lounge room was shocking, Nicky. You said yours was better. And it was generally aimed at one bloke, not the umpires, this bloke. Because this bloke here fouled up so many of our forward opportunities by thinking he's got this fancy footwork. I'm going to dance around everybody and show him how good I am. And instead, 9 times out there, they had to deliver the ball under pressure. No, I don't like the guy in terms of, I think he's got a great natural talent. He's got great speed, but there's something mentally adrift there in terms of just doing what's logical.
Nikki?
I think he he has a skill, which is how to save his own bacon at the end of the game. That he goes missing for long periods. He does, as you both have said, he takes too long to get rid of the ball into our forward line. He keeps trying to dodge and dart, which gets him into trouble. But it also, that makes it hard for our forwards because it's like, okay, we've let up. Well, do we have to lead again? Where the hell's he going now?
That's my whole point.
And yeah, if you watch that last 2 minutes back again, where Melbourne were really, really pushing, he was the one who kind of was actually going into the right defensive spot, was getting there. Okay, yeah, he dropped one of the marks, but he took two of the others.
Terrible squib, that one.
Yeah.
There was a squib, Nicky.
Oh, well, he marked the other two, which I think one of them was actually harder, which is really weird, which had more pressure on him. And it was, and I don't think there was a squib. That was more of it because it was a bit easier. He'd already started to think about what was to come next. And that's when you drop it instead of concentrating on what you're doing now.
The reason he dropped, he had a player running at him and he had a quick glance at him and dropped the ball.
Yeah, but I think he just manages to save himself by doing something like that. And I really, really need to see him drop back to the SANFL again because I don't think he was, particularly in that second quarter, there were a number of things that had me yelling at the television of, this is why we won't win finals with you in the team. And yet he then can pull it out for that last little bit, which helps us, win the game. It's just...
I don't think he does anything, Nikki. I don't think, Nikki, he does anything that about 5 other players on our list could do. Right, and the problem that I've got with Rat was epitomised in, I think it was the first quarter when he was on the end of either a handball or I think it was a handball. He was on the left half forward flank, just outside 50, and someone's given the handball to him, and he's gone to take it one-handed, and he spilled the ball.
Oh yes,
it went over the line.
Oh.
Right, and to me that epitomises Rory Atkins because I think Rory Atkins thinks he's one hell of a footballer. I think Rory has a massive, massive opinion of himself as a footballer, and it's costly, unfortunately, because he's not as good as what does he think. Confidence is fine, but you've got to. But there was no reason for Atkins to take that ball one-handed, right? It was lairising. It shows a lack of concentration. It shows a lack of care about the ball, and it shows a pretty high opinion. And that should have been an easy run-in goal, right? In the end, it was out of bounds and the ball comes back out. Now, that's just as bad as a squib, because it's not committing to what you're doing. It's basically being more worried about how you look and less worried about what you're doing. And to me, that's Rory Atkins all over. He dyes his hair, he wears his golden boots, he goes for the one-handers, he goes for the fend-offs, he likes to dance around. He's got some fantastic skill, particularly by foot, and he's a great player to have on the end of a chain of possessions, because he is one that will be able to hit someone on the boob with a forward 50 entry.
Yep.
But that's only one facet of the game, and unfortunately the other facets of the game he's proving quite costly, and I don't think the balance is enough at the moment to be able to accept his output in those areas of the game in order to have him doing those little lace outs and all that sort of stuff. We need to look at other people. There are other people bashing down the door for a game. There are other people that we're ignoring for a game. And I even felt that David McKay was unlucky to initially be left out ahead of Atkins because at least McKay has a dip.
Yes.
And is probably a wingman as well.
And knows how to run defensively.
So, yeah. So, I mean, I'm trying to be as... I roasted Atkins on the preview show, and I'm trying to be as balanced as I can, but I just think he's got a massive opinion of himself. I don't think he concentrates. I think he tries to lairise, and it outweighs the good things that he does.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Well, we'll have fun with Pete Tuesday night then, because
Well,
I think Pete's weakening a bit though. He's starting to open his eyes a little bit.
yeah. Well, I mean, Pete knows football, so I mean, you can't.
Oh, he's a good judge.
Can't ignore it.
But this
so
was
anyway,
his man, unfortunately.
so yeah, 27 kicks from Atkins, or 27 disposals from Atkins, or whatever it was. Yes, that's the positive. The 7 turnovers and the squibbing of contests probably cost us, a couple of goals. It wasn't probably as glaring as the West Coast game where he directly cost us goals. But I think he deserves to go back and just tighten up his game at the very least. Next guy. Sorry, go on.
We did see that from Rat when he got sent back to the SNFL last year, and when he came back in, he was actually correcting some of these things that we're talking about because he had that little sustained period in the SNFL.
Yeah.
And I would very much want to send him back, and I really want to see Davis at some stage to what he can actually do in an AFL team, because I think he can't show enough. And we've been playing him on the wing. We played him on the wing against North this weekend.
Yeah, we might get to that in a minute, Nick. Tommy Lynch, I actually thought was, with Ellis Yeoman, probably our most consistent player. 16 and 10 for 26, took 13 marks, 3 goals, 1 tackle, 4 inside 50s. He also had 7 contested, went at nearly 70%, had 10 score involvements, gained us 500 metres. And I just felt like he worked and worked and worked, and he is definitely the link in the chain in terms of our transition.
Well, he was my best player, actually. And Lynch, for the very reasons that you just said, you'd love to see how many miles or kilometres, that he actually did cover for the game, because he does work his backside off. And when he got that goal in the last quarter, he kicked that ball and he was nearly out to it. He was so tired because he'd run so far. And he really, I thought Tommy just, when Tom didn't play, we looked like a floundering ship because we had that total disconnect between our forward line and the rest of the players. But no, he is the connect. There's no doubt about that. And I thought he was outstanding. His game was excellent.
And Vardy Magic in the chat. Thanks, Vardy. You're an absolute legend, mate. The 2 games that Lynchy's played in Darwin, almost identical stats. 27 disposals, 3 goals, 26 disposals, 3 goals. So he likes it in the territory.
Obviously.
Yeah. Ellis Yeoman, I actually thought was our best midfielder, and I would have probably given him best, to be honest with you. 13 and 12 for 25 touches, 4 marks, kicked goal. That was people who think Ellis Yeoman can't kick, just go and watch that goal. All right, and then shut up. 2 tackles, 3 inside 50s, 5 clearances. He had 10 contested possessions, went at 72% disposal efficiency, guys. 9 score involvements, gained us over 300 metres. I just felt like he didn't give up inside in the contest against one of the bigger bodied midfields going around. I just thought he was immense.
Oh, yeah, terrific game. And
him and Greenwood in the last.
Yeah, but I had Cam up in my best 3 players, which were Crouch, Lynch, and him. And look, you could juggle them around in whichever order you like. They were good players. And he does give 100%, doesn't he? He uses that big body, and he's got his stats say he had 25 disposals, but there's so much work he does where you don't get a stat for it.
Yeah, blocks and bustling and all the rest of it. And as I keep saying, Macquarie doesn't go to ground.
What was his disposal efficiency?
72.
Which for those 25 disposals, that's a really nice that you're getting, 20.
Well, it gives him more
quality disposals.
Gives him more effective disposals than Bradley.
Yeah.
So, and therein lies my point. I'm so pleased for Ellis Yeoman that A, he's been given an extended run, and B, that he's taken it in both hands. I think he's been our most consistent inside midfielder for the season. I think he's a bit unfashionable. He's not flashy. He's not a big name or anything like. Oh, he's got a long name, but he's not a big name player, you know. But I think he's fast becoming one of the premier inside midfielders in the competition, and there's not too many inside. Yeah, there's not too many inside midfielders with his size. He's starting to remind me a bit of a JPK for Sydney. And he's still got a fair way to go in his career too, so I'm really pleased for Ellis Yeoman that he's persisted, and I'm glad that the club have persisted with him, because it looked for a little while as if he was on the outer. So
well, he was the last man signed up, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
He's still a rookie.
That's right. Amazing. I hope he's getting paid more than rookie wage, because he deserves it.
He definitely does. I mean, he would, because on the rookie wage you actually get quite a nice, if you actually play AFL, that's you get that nice little bonus on. And he's making it impossible to drop him. And what I like best is that he makes smart decisions because of his size, and he knows he's not quick. He can create that space to give himself the time to make the right decisions. He rarely gets caught with the ball.
Yeah, and he doesn't panic terribly much.
Yeah, he doesn't panic. And he also, it's that I just love watching him play, because you know you're going to get something good when he gets the ball.
Yep. Miller, I thought, was in and out of the game a bit. 13 and 9 for 22, took 7 marks, 5 clearances, 4 rebound 50s. He had 7 contested possessions, went at 95.5% disposal efficiency, if you don't mind.
He was one of the changes we made in the second half, because he went into the back lines.
Yeah.
He was in midfield rotations forward, and we swapped him.
Yeah. And he was more effective behind the ball, I felt.
Definitely.
Yeah. So not a bad game from Wayne. I think the rest of these players are sort of probably, you could class as in and out of the game. I thought Huey Greenwood was quiet, and I think we need to start asking a little bit more of Hugh. He ended up with 9 and 11, but he had a big last quarter. 4 marks, 7 tackles, 2 clearances, 10 contested possessions, but he only gained us 137 metres. And I think we're either seeing the limitations of Hugh's game, or Hugh needs to start having a bit more of an impact on games, don't you think?
Yeah, he's not at total efficiency for the whole game at the moment, and he's certainly playing well enough to hold his place in the side.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
He gives that extra pair of strong hands up forward, because he can take a strong overhead bar.
Yeah.
And I suspect that some of the period, and I don't know this is a fact, but that when he was out of the game could have been when he was resting up forward, when the ball wasn't there.
Possibly, Maka.
So it's hard to say, but his last quarter was outstanding, and a big contribution to our win, actually.
And he's another one that doesn't panic, and that's the basketball background in him. He's so good in close quarters. He gets his arms up, he gets his hands free. He doesn't panic like Brad Crouch can do. I'm surprised blokes aren't starting to chop his arms when he gets them up like that. But
he does it too quick. I'm trying to remember who it was in the chat gave him the nickname of criminal, because every time he gets the ball, he puts his hands up like he's about to get arrested.
Exactly.
Yeah. But Pendlebury does that quite a bit too. So it's obviously a basketball thing.
Yeah,
well, it's
you
also
get your arms up to keep your hands clear, and you can pass it.
Yeah, I mean that's a skill that's also taught, but you don't see many players doing it these days. Seadsman, as we've already spoken about, had 17 touches, was kind of in and out, did a couple of good things. Dave McKay didn't really notice all that much, had 16 touches. Jenkins...
You know who I thought had a bad game? Alex Keith.
Yeah, I'm going to get to him, Nick, because I don't disagree, but I think there might be some reasons for that. Jenkins, we've already spoken about. Look, he took 7 marks and kicked 2-3. It's a pass for me. Jake Kelly did some really good things and some really bad things. His defensive work, Jake, is really good. Ball in hand, he annoys the crap out of me. So, there you go. That's me.
That's your bias showing there with Kelly.
What's his efficiency
I think you
rating?
kind of want him to do more. he's going to occasionally do the one little stuff up. But for me, I love Jake's endeavour. I love the fact that he knows what his limitations are and he tries to play within them as much as possible, and he works on his mistakes. That spoil he did in that last 2 minutes for that low down mark, and to spoil that mark, that is, he stays in the team for me. And I think he's always stays in the team. You know what you're going to get with him. He's not an out-and-out outstanding defender like Talia used to be. He's not a defender like Luke Brown, but he's a very good defender.
Yeah, my thoughts on him is that you're right, Nicky. He plays within his limitations, and if you had a better player, you'd replace him. But I don't think we do have a better player to replace him. What was his efficiency, Fiend?
60.
I thought he used 60. Well, it's not as good as I thought it was. So,
nope.
I take it back. I've got to knock him back. My memory is he did the cap. But the one thing I was very angry with him about was that, and it comes back to what you said, Nicky, about playing within his limitations. Sometimes he limits himself further back into his limitations because there were an adventurous player or a player with some real imagination would have sometimes when he got the ball immediately played on because there was somebody ahead that he could have given the ball to, but he doesn't do that. And I think he missed a few opportunities to do that on the weekend.
You're right, and it was interesting, Matt, because they had a down the ground angle that they used a bit more often than usual at that ground. I don't know whether it's a configuration or whatever, but they did use that down the ground aspect more, and it showed a few times where Jake just didn't want to back himself in and move it on quickly, and I think that's probably where I get frustrated with him. But look, I don't disagree with you, Nick. As a defender, he was quite good. And Mac, you're dead set right. If we had a better player, we'd play him, but we don't. So there he is. Of the rest, let's talk a little bit about Keith. I think Keith really suffered from Hartigan being out. And I think it shows that as a one-out defender, he has a little way to go.
Well, he had a mixed bag, though. He had 10 intercepts off memory, which is very, very good for a player in defence. But he had some pretty bad moments as well where he got caught out. And and I think you're right. I think the lack of Hartigan, much as I do give Hartigan a hard time when he has to think and he makes a boo-boo, but I think he is an integral part of the back line. Having a slightly different structure there with that extra small end McKay, it did make a difference, I think, Fiend, that the support he would have got from Talia Hartigan was now down to only one tall, and which meant that he was more caught in that situation more often. But whereas his strength is they take care of the big blokes and he comes into the intercept situation. And I thought he did the intercept quite well, but he did get caught out away from his man a couple of times.
I think there's also the past couple of weeks where what I've really noticed is that opposition teams are working very hard to keep him away from the play.
Yeah,
and he
I
hasn't
agree.
quite figured out how to work around that yet. And he's still a very young player in that role, learning it. I think you are spot on, Fiend, that the loss of Hartigan was a real kick down for that. But why I was a little bit disappointed is that he's got such great timing, but he was running under the ball continuously. He didn't quite have it, whereas we saw at the start of the year, he was marking those balls. He was getting that punch, whereas he was just that little bit under it.
And that's what happens.
Just enough.
That's what happens when you're a bit more closely marked, Nick. When you've got a bloke on you. Well, not only that, sometimes it just actually messes in with your head a little bit and you tend to get under the ball a bit. It's a good observation. I just want to point out too, DSG, thanks in the chat, pointing out that Cam and I had a bet on the rev up that JJ would kick 4 or more goals. He didn't, so Cam, get those beers organised. Thank you.
Easy money.
Yeah, I thought it was. Eddie Betts sort of sniffed around for 3 quarters and then you could just see it in his eyes, couldn't you? He he just had that feeling that we were in the game and he was going to make something happen. And boy, didn't he turn it on the last
quarter.
That pass to Crouch. How many other small forwards would have had a shot on goal?
Yep.
Not even look. And also, you actually have to give credit to Murphy there, because Murphy came in and took out those Melbourne players.
Yeah. Look, and also
and I think that was actually slightly deliberate.
The ability to keep his feet and to be very composed in that other situation where everyone else sort of fell on the ball and he was there just to pick it out the back and run in as well. Vintage Bets, I thought he was crucial in that last quarter, and it's why he's in the team, isn't it? You know, he only needs 4 or 5 touches and he can burn you. So he kicked a couple of goals in the end, but they were very key goals at the death. Gibbs, we've talked about, did a good job on Oliver in the second half, but it begs the question, and someone asked me this on in DMs on Big Footy, and I thought it was a very valid point. Are we now at the point where Bryce Gibbs is nothing more than a tagger?
Yeah, well, it's a sad situation if that is the case, because, you know, having paid the price that we did pay for him. No, but look, unfortunately, we had this Gibbs mania that we wanted him back, and that. Look, at his best, he was a very good footballer, but he's not at his best at the moment, in my opinion. And whether that's look, he isn't the player, and even then, he was never going to be the player that would you a flag, because he hasn't got really one outstanding feature, in my opinion. He's a good player, but what's his outstanding feature?
Well, it's probably his foot skills, but even that's gone off the ball.
You've got to get the ball first before you do that.
Well, that's true, yeah. Yeah, it's a fair call, Mac. I'm just disappointed with him. Just disappointed with him.
Simon Moore rightly says can't be a freewheeler like he was at Carlton, and look, that's what he was. He was virtually able to play his own game at Carlton and not worry about the result, because the others weren't any good anyhow. So,
look, having said that, if he can do a run with Job and get a bit of the agate himself and do a little bit of damage going the other way, then it's not such a bad thing, right? And look, I think if he doesn't keep Oliver quiet, we don't win that game. So there's not as if we're devaluing his effort in the game. But you'd wish it was somebody else that was doing it, and Bryce actually, you know, doing some of the silky stuff. But, you know, I think we have to just be resigned to the fact that that's not the case. And I think he's definitely in our best 22. In that kind of role, I think he can be quite serviceable, and he might have games where he gets off the chain a bit. But, yeah, I think we bought on perhaps a little bit of nostalgia, as it turns out. And I dare say his best is probably behind him.
Yeah, well, we paid for a Rolls Royce and we got a VW, so that's what it is.
Galuch, I thought he was really good. 13 touches, 3 marks, 1 goal. People bag him, he doesn't do enough, etc. He's behind, you know, Berry and the others and all the rest of it. Look, he's had a couple of injuries. He didn't get the same opportunities early on as those blokes did, but he does enough, and he does some things that make me look forward to the next 50 or 60 games, because I just think he's going to improve out of sight.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think he's got the massive potential, and if you ever want to be leading to any one of the Crows footballers on the lead up forward, he's the man you'd want to be leading to. He doesn't break stride at all. He gets his body down low over the ball, and he just does these beautiful little passes right on their chest. And I really like Gooch, and just keep playing hard. Even if he has a bad game now and again, keep playing. He's got to be a good. He's got to be a good player.
He's slowly starting to build up those possessions. He's playing on that no man's land, that half forward, when he is a midfielder.
Yep.
We know that that's primarily what he is. The fact that we kept him in drop nights, I really liked. The fact also that he can kick those beautiful passes with either foot. So that makes him so damaging and hard to counter. And I think somebody in the chat also likened him to, you would feel like Dunstall getting a pass from Darren Jarman with one of the kicks that he's putting in. It's just it was just so noticeable how different his quality going into our forward line was than the rest of our team.
Just
Well,
a little
And I love the twirl of his moustache after he kicked the goal. That was quite nice. And
style,
in
Nicky.
the
I was
song-
about to get there, but
yeah. And then did you actually notice in the song Greenwood tried to do it to him as well?
yes, he did.
Well, I'll give you this, right? So Gallucci sort of had 11 touches. Sorry, he had more than that. He had 13 touches, didn't he, I think? What do you have? Yeah, 13 touches, etc., etc. I'll just read you someone else's career average, because this is the bloke that he's probably keeping out at the moment. Someone else, 11 career average, 11 kicks, 7 handballs, so 18 touches, 3 marks, half a goal, 3.5 tackles, 3 and a bit inside 50s, etc., etc. That's who he's keeping out at the moment. So we're not actually losing anything by having Gallucci in the side ahead of Richard Douglas.
I agree with that.
You know, Richard Douglas is the perennial 15-toucher a week player over the course of his career, and that's been my main criticism of Dougie. And we don't see Gallucci go to ground as much. We don't see Gallucci fumble as much. We see better delivery by foot than Douglas. So if it's a choice between the two, and I believe it is, then Gallucci for mine every day of the week.
Well, in my opinion, football clubs have to make choices like that, in the sense that do you do what you've always done and keep playing Douglas and get what you've always got, or do you play somebody like a Gallucci who's got massive potential, in my opinion, to be a very, very good player and is definitely on the rise? And he had a limited pre-season. He had injuries there, and he's he's building at the moment. And I think last year he showed that he was building towards the end of the year, and he'll keep building towards the end of the year if they keep playing him. And that's where you've got to make a reward. You've got to make a decision, and you'll get a reward out of it by sticking with it, because I think he's a player that can be a very good player for us long term.
Yeah.
But there's one other thing he has that Douglas doesn't have.
Pace.
Yeah.
Exactly. Nick.
And we know Pike likes him for that.
Now,
so he's got those beautiful skills.
Correct. Now, we've got to hurry up, because if we go over 1:30, then that's bad. And we're at 1:28. So of the rest, I just want to spend a moment on Tex. I think he's out of form. I don't think he's right. I think he's too heavy. I think he's worried too much. Trouble is you can't drop him, correct?
Correct.
Lockie Murphy tries his guts out, does some good things, not enough output, not enough reward for effort, in my view, correct?
I had a poor game.
I'd rather
by his standards.
I'd rather Chase in there than Lockie, to be honest. He only had four. He only had 4 touches.
I would choose Chase rather than Lockie at the moment, because I think that Chase has got a long term. Again, you got to make those decisions about long term careers. And
Chase looked a little bit tired in the SNFL. He needed the break.
That's possible, but there's others too. You could give Ned McHenry a run. I think you could give Stengel a run ahead of Murphy. 4 touches isn't enough. 4 touches, 1 tackle isn't enough. We had bugger all tackles inside 50, Nick, and that's one of his jobs. We had what was it? 7 tackles inside 50 for the night, and it's one of the reasons to have Murphy in the side, and he only contributed 1.
Yeah, I think Ned needs to come in. He's been playing really well and consistently in the SNFL. Stengel, unfortunately, our small forwards. It was not a day for small forwards in the SNFL.
No,
so,
but he's got
to go.
Stengel's done enough.
Good. Yeah, I think he has built nicely. I just do wonder about that pace. It's his tank for that particular role in the AFL is slightly different how it is in the SNFL.
That is the deficiency in Stengel. And Stengel has actually got very good natural talent around the goals, but the Lockie Murphy role is goals are a bonus as far as he's concerned. The rest of it is that defensive forward and that's why it's been said one tackle's not good enough for the night.
No, it's not enough.
And the possession number is very low as well.
Now, on the way out, can anyone tell me what was wrong with Hardigan? Because I haven't been able to find out. What
don't
was
know.
What was the
idea.
problem?
Out
No
there
one
in the
knows.
chat world, anybody know?
No, I don't think. You know what? I reckon it was tactical. I don't reckon he was injured at all. I reckon we thought
they
we
don't
might have
have
been a
that
bit
too.
top heavy.
Yeah.
Because why else would you bring in D-Mac for Hardigan? It's a silly swap unless it's tactical. Anyway, look, let's wrap it up. Thanks, guys. It's an interesting time for the Crows. It's hard to be too gleeful about that win, but a win's a win at this time of the year, and et cetera, et cetera. So we'll take it. Thank you, everyone, on the chat on Spreaker. We're up over 640 again this week. Good boys. Facebook chat's been good too. Thanks, guys, and thanks everyone on YouTube as well. Don't forget, we'll be back on Tuesday night. So all these
And
other
just quickly,
questions.
There's only one cockwomble for this week, and that's Port Adelaide, the China game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep. Sorry, Nick. We're just going too long.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so thanks Ryan at Smith Partners Real Estate, thanks Down to Earth Electrical, thanks to all our patrons. Don't forget, if you want to support us, you can go to patreon.com/AFL CrowCast or go to aflcrowcast.com and click on the Patreon button. We'll be back on Tuesday night for lots of chat, I reckon, lots to talk about. Thanks very much to everyone for listening and supporting us, and we'll see you then. Good night, guys.
Yeah. Good night, all.
Night.